People and events that are making news or making a difference. Brought to you by Edgewater Bank. Our community, your edge. On WSJM, AM 1400 and FM 94.9. The news and talk of Michigan's great Southwest.
Good morning. Jim Gifford in for Brenda Lane here, who is off on assignment today, 7 minutes after 11 o'clock in the Spotlight on WSJM, AM 1400, FM 94.9. Spotlight today shines on the inevitable, the effervescent, the I got something to say, Bob Jackson, who has been here once or twice before. Now, why don't I hear you? Oh, dummy, I got to turn the mic on. It's always important that if you're going to have a guest in the studio that you actually hook it up so that you can hear the man speak.
Well, that does make it a little easier, Ken. Thank you again for inviting me for the second time.
Yeah, welcome. You were on with Pat a couple of weeks or a month or so ago, and bring you back and give you a chance to talk to a different audience here. Bob is a Libertarian candidate for president. And before we get into issues and the basic tenet of the party and so on and so forth, a little bit about you, where you're from, your political background, and that sort of thing.
Well, I've basically been in this area now since 1974 when I started my own business for what I saved out of a paycheck. It was a triax down there. We had it for about 20-some years. And I also worked very heavily on the enterprise zone in the area. So I've been very active in the business and political area for the last 20 years in this area.
Okay. And here you are today on the 26th of February, touting yourself as the best man to lead the Libertarian Party as a presidential candidate. What gives you the guts to think that that's a good idea?
Well, I do think the Libertarian Party has some advantages in that it does have the ability to put a candidate on all 50 ballots. So it is, in fact, a valid third party.
Right.
It's also a party that's founded on personal freedoms and responsibilities and limited government. And some people like to think of them as a constitutional party because they go to the Constitution as a guideline for the federal government, which is not at all a bad thing to do since it's the law of the land. So if you put those together, the Libertarian Party fits that mold. And personally, I've been a Republican for many, many years, and I always believed in fiscal responsibility and limited government. Well, they had a chance, didn't work. So I now think the Libertarians are preaching the same message. I think maybe they have a chance of pulling it off.
Do you find a lot of former Republicans coming over to the Libertarian side?
Yes, actually, there's quite a mix. From the conventions that I've been through, it's almost 50-50. You'll find the conservative Republicans, and you'll find the very liberal Democrats there that also share that they wish to have personal freedoms and the ability to enjoy their lives at their own discretion, which crosses the boundaries of a lot of politicians. Biggest
fear, then, is the old issues of Big Brother and big government is just too much a part of what you're doing. And obviously you saw that as a businessman, right?
Right. And the more the government gets into it, the more they mess it up. And the more they mess up, the more they give you to mess it up even further. So I think we've all seen that. We can't afford it. The government is dysfunctional. So we need to find a way to correct that. And I think actually that's where a third-party candidate comes in, because if you look at a Democrat or Republican president coming in next year, they're going to be married to half the problem and a vow to fight with the other half. So you're going to get the same thing in the next 20 years you got in the last 20 years, which is ever-expanding government, and for everything they do wrong, to just make more of it.
What do you mean by being married to half the problem?
Well, if you're a Democrat, then you're going to be married to half the congressmen and senators up there, which are Democrats, and then you're going to have to basically abide by what their overall choices are, and then you're going to fight with the Republicans, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean, that they're going to be married to half of it, because that's what they are.
Third party comes in with a clean slate and can work with or against either side to try to get something done.
Well, actually, it's even more fun than that. With a veto power, a third party president would be able to veto all of the legislation that's coming up by the leadership. And the leadership is what's basically wrong with Congress. I mean, these people have been there so long, they have no idea what real Americans need. They don't have the ability to override a veto because, again, they're fighting with each other. The Democrats and Republican leadership's not going to get together. What this then does is it allows the president to get to the lower seniority congressmen and senators, those that are now disenfranchised. They can't even do anything for 20 years. Drink Potomac water and get stupid.
We were talking.
Right. You go to these younger ones and say, this is the kind of legislation we need that's good for the country in conformance with what the Constitution provides. So you're actually able to get that legislation developed. The other thing is the cabinet, which is the administrative board of directors of the presidency. Well, a third-party candidate can put in the best people in the country. I can put in Democrats,
from both sides,
Libertarians, business people.
Probably the last guy to do that was Lincoln.
Yeah, and because, again, he was a third-party candidate, and he was able to select the best talent. And only a third-party candidate can do that. So in this case, it's not only the fact that a third-party candidate has a chance, but it has the only chance to really effectively change the government back to what the government should be doing.
That would, are you in favor then of the line item veto? You think that's a good idea, or do you think that would not even be necessary in the scenario that you're talking about?
Well, it's something you're not going to get as a president. I mean, they've been trying to do that all along. So I just operate on the basis of veto what doesn't come up correctly and go back to the membership. But the other item that goes with that is term limits. And term limits is something that most Americans, I think last time around 75% of the Americans would really like to see term limits in Congress. So again, so they can get better candidates and better representation that's associated with the country. Well, as a third-party candidate, I can acknowledge only the low seniority people and have a de facto term limits. So I could put it in.
Yeah. I think, as you said, the newer people coming into Congress, both the Senate and the House, some of them may be reformers in their heart, in their heads. But as we were talking before we went on the air, either they go through some sort of a weird shower, or as you suggested, maybe they just drink the Potomac water there, and all of a sudden they absorbed into the system and they can't function.
That's right. You drink that water for 20 years, voting lockstep with leadership, and you do get a little bit of brain problem. Younger ones, I mean, why did they get elected? And why did they spend all their money and their time? Is because they had a priority and an agenda.
And they weren't happy with the way things are being done.
Right.
Yeah.
And they know what's going on in their district. Yeah. So let them do what they're elected to do.
What about the other side of the term limits argument, whereas seems like a problem they're experiencing in Lansing is nobody knows what's going on because nobody's been there long enough to know.
Oh, I don't think that's really true. I think what the avenue is that the term limits objection is that they had these very good senators and representatives up there that are now termed out. Mm-hmm. Well, that's because of the term limits. You now have good representatives and senators that do know what's going on, and you are attracting much better candidates. So you're seeing better candidates because if they go to Lansing, they can actually do something. Mm-hmm. And they also know when they go to Lansing, they better be ready because they are going to be handed a job.
They got to be ready to hit the ground running.
That's what politics are for. Yeah. People doing what they're supposed to do for the benefit. Mm-hmm. Term limits gives them that. Spotlight today is shining on Bob Jackson, the Libertarian candidate for president out of, did he even say Coloma? Coloma. All right. Well, the chance, now talk about your chance to actually be the guy on the ballot in November when we come back. We'll take our first break here at 11:15. Spotlight in the Spotlight with Jim Gifford in for Brenda Lane on WSJM, AM 1400, FM 94.9, the news and talk of Michigan's Great Southwest.